In the previous episode, we saw how Leping calmed down Elizabeth's anger and told everyone to enjoy the hot spring with them. Up next, Emilia stood still when suddenly water splashed onto her face, soaking her completely. She froze for a moment, her expression dull, then slowly narrowed her eyes with annoyance, drops running down her cheek. Not far away, Miss Pythias sat inside a strange machine with large cannons attached to it. She controlled the levers with a smirk, clearly enjoying herself. Miss Pythias again used her machine robot, spraying powerful streams of water downward at Emilia. However, Emilia attacked with her fire breath and turned the water into steam. Meanwhile, Mr. Bors rested calmly, his eyes half closed as if nothing in the world could bother him. But before he could enjoy his peace, sparks of energy suddenly burst around him. In the next moment, a massive creature with a fluffy, rabbit-like appearance came crashing down on him. With great force, the beast pounded him into the ground. However, it wasn't attacking him, it was giving him a massage. And from Mr. Bors' expression, it was clear he was enjoying it. On the other side, Annie relaxed on a giant panda-shaped float, drifting peacefully in the warm water. Nearby, Blue Sword stood in surprise as he noticed Purple Sword and Yellow Sword in the pool, their faces red and dizzy from the spinning water. While some struggled in chaos, others enjoyed calm moments. On a sunny beach, Leping and Elizabeth lounged under an umbrella, enjoying peaceful time. However, they didn't know that behind them, Emilia and Miss Pythias with her giant armored figure clashed with each other. Leping turned his head, smiling with ease, while Elizabeth responded with a knowing smirk. Even with a battle raging in the background, the two seemed to share a quiet, confident understanding. After that, Elizabeth went into the hot spring to relax. She leaned lazily against the edge of the hot spring, looking calm. But behind her, Miss Pythias and Emilia were competing with one another to wash Elizabeth's back. Not far away, Annie, Miss Chi-Chi, and Elif sat together in the warm water. One of them spoke calmly, noticing something unusual. She said that she could feel the energy inside Annie's body had become smoother. She asked if the power of Annie's bloodline was now under control. Annie nodded with sincerity and explained that thanks to Sister Elizabeth's help, all the power within her bloodline had been awakened completely. Elif looked at Annie with curiosity. She asked gently if she could see what Annie looked like after her awakening. Annie adjusted her glasses and nodded with determination. She explained that now, as long as she focused her thoughts, she could freely switch between forms. She closed her eyes for a moment, concentrating deeply. Then, with a sudden surge of energy, her body transformed. Her skin turned a glowing purple, her eyes lit up red, and sharp horns appeared on her head. Water splashed around as her awakened form revealed itself in front of everyone. Annie, now in her awakened form, explained to the others that in this state, both her magic and physical strength increased greatly, and her vision with the Eye of the Red Demon became much sharper. However, there was also a drawback. She could not use her puppet magic while in this form. Miss Chi-Chi nodded, impressed. She praised Annie's power, saying it was incredible, and that Annie had already stepped onto the path of the Demon King. She believed Annie's future potential was limitless. Annie shook her head humbly. She admitted that without Sister Elizabeth's help, she might never have reached this stage. Miss Chi-Chi also agreed, adding that without the hero's guidance and understanding the way of Taiji, she too would still be stuck, unable to advance beyond the Demon Lord level. Finally, she spoke firmly. That was why they could not allow the hero and the Demon King to be disappointed. No matter what, they had to stop the invasion of the evil sect. Hearing their conversation, Elif sank low in the hot spring, only her head sticking out as little swirls of frustration floated above her. She muttered that she too had been using the Eye of the Red Demon to sense magical fluctuations within a 10-kilometer radius. But as she listened to the others talk about their breakthroughs, she lowered her face further into the water. Inwardly, she sighed. She admired them deeply. After receiving the same blessings, they had already reached the Demon King level. Yet here she was, still stuck, unable to break through. Bubbles rose around her as she sank deeper into the water, quietly sulking in disappointment. Then Miss Chi-Chi looked at Elif and noticed something unusual. She pointed out that her aura seemed unstable and asked if something was troubling her. Elif lowered her gaze and admitted her problem. She explained that in the last spirit incident, the key cards of K and Q had been lost. Because of that, both she and her father had hit a bottleneck in their growth. Her father could still summon 2 cards, so the loss didn't affect him as much, but she had never used them before, and now she feared she would only drag everyone down in the upcoming battle against the evil sect, unable to contribute at all. Hearing this, Annie smiled and reassured her. She reminded the elf that even creating the fruit hot spring had already been a huge help to everyone. Alif shook her head slightly, giving credit elsewhere. She said it was actually thanks to teacher Leping. During training, he had given her the problem of dividing fruit as a test. That was when she came up with the idea of using fruit to make a hot spring. She went on to explain further. Teacher Leping had asked her to divide limited fruits equally among everyone as preparation for battle, but because different fruits had different effects, it was almost impossible to distribute them fairly. Then she realized, if she mixed the fruit juice into the hot spring, everyone could benefit together. Upon hearing this, Miss Chi-Chi spoke calmly, telling Elif not to belittle herself. She reminded her that not everyone could pass the trials given by the hero. Even if she didn't fight on the front lines, her presence and support still gave everyone peace of mind. At that moment, a note appeared explaining the effect of her cultivation. It said that the 5th level of the Tao of Taiji allowed words to carry the true meaning of the Tao, helping others who were weaker to overcome their troubles. Hearing these words, Elif's eyes lit up. She realized that Teacher Leping never wanted them to compete against each other, but to cooperate as one. Everyone had their role, and as long as they could contribute to protecting the continent, even supporting from the back lines was something to be proud of. Encouraged, she stood up with renewed energy, thanking Miss Chi-Chi for her encouragement. With a bright smile, she declared that she would lift her spirits and do her part. From above, the hot spring area stretched out in circles, steam rising gently into the air. The girls soaked together on one side, while a different section of the springs was set apart by signs. Further away, another pool had its own wooden marker with the words "Heavenly Body" written on it. This pool was filled with men, quietly enjoying the warmth. Among them, Leping leaned back comfortably, sighing with delight. He exclaimed that nothing felt better than soaking naked in the warm water. He said it was so freeing, without restraints, and completely relaxing. The others, however, were left speechless. Their silence only grew heavier when they glanced toward a figure nearby. With admiration and disbelief, they whispered that his body proportions were simply too perfect. Could this really be the holy physique of Teacher Leping that they were witnessing? Flustered, they muttered to themselves that this was far too indecent, far too much to handle. At that moment, Leping himself turned to them with a cheerful smile. He noticed they were sitting so far away and warmly offered to come closer and scrub their backs for them. The Dwarf King looked uneasy, waving his hands as he spoke. He said it wasn't right, that someone of his status could never accept such service from the great hero. Leping, however, only smiled warmly. He reminded them that they had already agreed to enjoy the hot spring together as equals, not with distance between them. Inside, he realized the lingering influence of Elizabeth still weighed heavily on the others. Even here in the hot spring, they remained cautious of him. The man seen as the Demon Queen's partner, he knew he had to close that gap and bring everyone closer. With determination, he stood and splashed forward, declaring loudly that the matter was settled. He told everyone to sit properly because he was joining them. The sudden boldness shocked the others. Their eyes widened in disbelief as Leping walked confidently toward them, his actions leaving them stunned and speechless. The others were left stunned when Leping approached them with a calm but confident smile, holding soap in one hand and a towel in the other. His presence was overwhelming, yet he looked completely relaxed, as if this was the most natural thing in the world. Despite their earlier hesitation, the men soon found themselves lined up in a row, sitting on stools with towels around their waists. Leping stood behind them, ready to scrub their backs, humming softly as he worked. The awkward atmosphere turned almost comical. Breaking the silence, one of the younger men asked respectfully, "Mr. Bors and Dwarf King, is there anything he should be careful about going forward?" The Dwarf King, calm and steady, replied, "There's no need to be too nervous. As long as they follow the hero's guidance, everything will be fine. His arrangements always have meaning behind them." The words reassured the group, though their stiff shoulders showed they were still trying to get used to Leping's overbearing friendliness. Leping clapped the foam in his hands, smiling brightly. He announced that the bubbles were ready, and it was time to begin. The others watched nervously as his shadow stretched across the floor. Suddenly, that shadow split into countless arms, spreading out like a godly figure with overwhelming presence. The sight alone made the men gulp in fear. A golden light surged behind him, forming a divine statue with many arms. Leping stepped forward, his voice echoing, as he commanded them to enjoy themselves fully. The overwhelming pressure made them tremble. Sweat poured down their faces as they straightened their backs, unable to relax under his aura. Then, as if on cue, the air shifted again. A booming background beat, like sudden music, seemed to explode in their heads. Leping moved with dazzling speed, twirling his towel as if he were unleashing a martial arts technique. Numbers appeared in the air like a game, counting each strike. 1 hit, 2 hits, 3 hits, until the numbers flew past in a blur. Everyone watched in shock as the count soared into the hundreds, then the thousands. Their eyes bulged, jaws slack, as they realized they were witnessing something completely beyond reason. Leping didn't slow down. His towel danced faster and faster, the hits stacking endlessly. Soon the counter burst past all limits, flashing the symbol of infinity. The men could no longer hold themselves together. With loud cries, their bodies shivered and collapsed under the overwhelming flurry, as if they had been beaten down by sheer absurd power. In the end, the three lay sprawled on the floor, glowing faintly as if their spirits had been washed clean. Meanwhile, Leping stood tall, towel in hand, looking completely satisfied with his performance. He stood proudly with a playful smile, asking if his technique wasn't impressive enough. The old men lay on the ground, glowing faintly, too drained to reply. He then thought to himself that while he might not always excel in battle, he was still confident in his everyday skills. At least this time, he had finally managed to show off a little. Meanwhile, at Leping's house, Holy Sword Alpha returned. Seeing that no one was around, he muttered to himself that this was the perfect opportunity. Dark energy stirred around him as he was someone else in Alpha's body, and it was partly true. Someone had cast a forbidden spell on him. The magic of the abyss, soul displacement, had replaced his soul with someone else. Just then, a system message appeared, reminding him that many tools had already been stolen by this cunning enemy before. But this time, with the house empty, the system urged him to seize the main base. Still, the system warned him to be careful. There were many unknown presences inside. Alpha smirked at the warning. To him, such words were unnecessary. After all, he was already a 4-star demon king, standing at the peak of power. Other than Elizabeth, who else in this world could possibly be a threat to him? As he mocked the warning, suddenly he heard barking from nearby. Breaking the silence, it was Wang Chai. The system warned him that this creature, named Wang Chai, was second only to Elizabeth in strength and should not be underestimated. Wang Chai looked at Alpha and scolded him, asking where he had been these past few days. It complained that there were important matters to discuss. Yet, he was nowhere to be found. The intruder, controlling Alpha's body, froze for a moment. He repeated the words, "Important matters?" pretending to play along. Then Wang Chai told him that things had already begun and asked him to follow. Upon hearing this, the intruder controlling Alpha's body realized with relief that Wang Chai hadn't noticed he was only controlling the Holy Sword's body. Smirking to himself, he decided to take advantage of this chance, using Wang Chai to gather information without blowing his cover. After that, he followed Wang Chai to the house. From above, the cottage looked calm under the fading sunset. Standing before the door, Wang Chai barked and ordered him to open it quickly. Alpha gritted his teeth, clearly annoyed. Inside his mind, anger burned. How could a dog dare to command him, a so-called brave hero? His pride screamed in protest, but he forced himself to endure a little longer. With a clenched jaw and trembling hand, he reached for the door handle, whispering to himself that he would tolerate this humiliation. But when Alpha pushed open the door, a strange blue light burst out, filling the room with a chilling glow. His eyes widened in shock at the sight before him. He muttered to himself in disbelief. This wasn't an ordinary room. It felt like he had stepped into a hidden dimension, a space sealed within the house. Inside, countless objects floated around as if the laws of gravity no longer existed. Toys, tiles, cannons, and even strange artifacts drifted freely in the glowing air, creating a bizarre battlefield-like scene. Alpha stood frozen, staring at the sheer number of powerful weapons and tools hidden here. He realized that the former hero had kept a massive arsenal concealed within this very home. Inside the strange glowing space, Alpha suddenly saw the battlefield come alive. Chess pieces, tokens, and statues of horses clashed against one another, swinging weapons and striking with terrifying force. The sound of battle echoed as if a real war was unfolding right before his eyes. Shards of broken pieces scattered across the ground as pawns and tokens smashed into each other. Even mighty figures that looked unshakable began to crumble under the relentless attacks. Alpha stood there, stunned, realizing this was no ordinary room. It was a living arena where even objects fought as though they carried the will of warriors. The battlefield inside the strange space grew even more chaotic. From above, something massive began to fall, like a giant block crashing down from the heavens. The glass-like chess soldiers below looked up in panic as the shadow swallowed them. With a deafening crash, the enormous tile slammed into the ground, shaking the entire space. Dust and shards scattered everywhere as waves of energy rippled outward. The impact shattered the battlefield floor, crushing anything caught beneath it. The scene turned into pure destruction, as if the room itself wanted to bury everything alive. The crushing weight of the giant blocks smashed into the battlefield, shaking the ground and cracking the stone tiles. Pieces shattered and scattered everywhere, while the chess tokens struggled to hold their ground. Some tokens split apart under the pressure, breaking into fragments as the battlefield grew more chaotic. Then, glowing words lit up in the air, 13 wonders, as if announcing the awakening of a forbidden formation. The board shifted, showing an arrangement of chess pieces, horse statues, and giant blocks, each one glowing with strange energy. The air grew heavier, and the symbols for east, south, west, and north stood like pillars, sealing the space. At the center, a marble-like orb began to spin, releasing a powerful aura. The battlefield was no longer just a game. It had become a terrifying formation with unstoppable force.